In the heart of the vast, unforgiving Mongolian steppe, where the wind whispers tales of forgotten heroes, a story was forged in blood and betrayal. A story that would give rise to the greatest conqueror the world has ever known. Long before the Mongol Empire cast its shadow across continents, the steppe was a fractured land, a chaotic mosaic of warring tribes. The Tatars, the Merkits, the Naimans, and Yesugei's own clan, the Borjigin, all vied for dominance. In this world, strength was law, and survival was a daily battle. Yesugei was a chieftain, a Bahadur, a valiant warrior. He was respected, feared, and a master of the brutal politics of the plains. One day, while hunting with his falcon, Yesugei spotted a woman of striking beauty traveling in a cart. Her name was Hoelun, and she was betrothed to a Merkit chieftain. But on the steppe, what a Bahadur desires he takes. In a swift, audacious move, Yesugei and his brothers abducted Hoelun. This act, while common for the time, planted a seed of bitter hatred. The Merkits would never forget this insult, a debt they would one day collect with devastating consequences. Yesugei and Hoelun's union produced several children. Their firstborn was a boy, born clutching a clot of blood in his tiny fist, a sign, the shaman said, that he was destined for greatness. They named him Temujin. Yesugei, a doting father by the standards of his time, saw the spark of a leader in his son and began to groom him for the harsh realities of their world. He taught Temujin to ride, to hunt, and to understand the intricate web of alliances and enmities that defined their existence. When Temujin was just 9 years old, Yesugei decided it was time to find him a bride. Yesugei, his duty done, began his journey home alone. But fate, as it often does on the steppe, had a cruel twist in store. On his way back, Yesugei came across a camp of Tatars, his people's sworn enemies. Exhausted and thirsty, he accepted their offer of hospitality, not knowing the ancient custom of never harming a guest was about to be broken. Recognizing their old foe, the Tatars secretly poisoned his food. Yesugei rode away, but the poison was already coursing through his veins. He made it back to his own camp just in time to give his final instructions before succumbing. His last words were for his young son, Temujin, a boy now left fatherless in a world that showed no mercy. The death of Yesugei was a catastrophe. Without its strong leader, his clan shattered. Rivals, sensing weakness, abandoned them. Yesugei's own people cast out his widows and children, leaving them to fend for themselves on the barren steppe. The boy, Temujin, was plunged into a world of poverty and persecution. The abduction of his mother had created enemies, and the death of his father had left him defenseless. It was from these ashes of betrayal and hardship that the future Genghis Khan would rise, fueled by the memory of his father and a burning desire to unite the tribes that had torn his family apart. Yesugei's story ended in tragedy, but it was the dramatic prelude to the largest land empire in history. From the vast, wind-swept steppes of Mongolia, a name emerged that would echo through eternity. A name that would unite a scattered people and forge an empire that stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the heart of Europe. This is the story of Genghis Khan. Before he was the great Khan, he was a boy named Temujin, born into a world of brutal tribal warfare. Orphaned, abandoned, and hunted, his early life was a relentless struggle for survival. But within this young outcast burned an unquenchable fire. He learned that survival wasn't enough. To truly live, he had to unite the warring tribes under a single banner. It was an impossible dream, a vision that no one had ever dared to imagine, let alone achieve. Through sheer force of will, strategic genius, and an uncanny ability to inspire loyalty, Temujin began his ascent. He didn't just defeat his rivals, he absorbed them. He offered former enemies a place in his new order, valuing skill and loyalty above noble birth. He created the Yasa, a secret code of laws that brought order and discipline to a once chaotic society. By 1206, he had done the impossible. At a grand assembly, or Kurultai, he was proclaimed Genghis Khan, the universal ruler of all Mongols. But uniting the steppes was only the beginning. Genghis Khan looked beyond his borders and saw a world ripe for conquest. His first major campaign was against the Western Xia Kingdom, a formidable power in its own right. Here, the world first witnessed the terrifying efficiency of the Mongol war machine. His armies were unlike anything the world had ever seen. Every soldier was a master horseman and archer, able to ride for days and unleash storms of arrows upon their enemies with deadly precision. They were masters of psychological warfare. They used drums and banners to create the illusion of a much larger force, striking fear into the hearts of their opponents before the battle even began. They perfected the feigned retreat, luring overconfident enemies into devastating ambushes. They were also brilliant engineers, quickly learning and adapting the siege technologies of the peoples they conquered, turning captured craftsmen into weapons against their former masters. The fortified cities of the Western Xia, once thought impregnable, crumbled before the Mongol onslaught. Next, the Khan turned his attention to the mighty Jin dynasty in northern China. This was a war of a different scale entirely, against a vast and ancient empire. The Mongols swept across the plains, but the great cities, like the capital Zhongdu, modern-day Beijing, held fast behind their massive walls. The siege of Zhongdu was a grueling, year-long ordeal. The Mongols cut off all supplies, and the city slowly starved. It was a brutal but effective display of patience and relentless pressure. When the city finally fell, it was a turning point. The Mongols had proven that no wall was high enough to stop them. Perhaps the most infamous of Genghis Khan's campaigns was the one that followed. When the powerful Khwarezmian Empire in Central Asia foolishly executed Mongol envoys, they unleashed a storm of vengeance. Genghis Khan saw this not just as an act of aggression, but as a personal insult that had to be answered with overwhelming force. He led his armies across deserts and mountains in a multi-pronged invasion that completely dismantled the empire. The Mongols moved with terrifying speed, overwhelming cities like Samarkand and Bukhara, centers of learning and culture. The destruction was immense. Genghis Khan's strategy was simple and brutal: submit and live, resist and be annihilated. This policy wasn't born of mindless cruelty, but of cold, calculated strategy. By making examples of those who resisted, he ensured that other cities would surrender without a fight, saving Mongol lives and resources. It was a grim calculus of conquest that spread terror and quickened the expansion of his empire. What truly set Genghis Khan apart was not just his military prowess, but his vision for the empire he was building. He wasn't just a conqueror, he was a nation builder. He established the Yam, a revolutionary postal relay system that allowed messages and goods to travel with unprecedented speed across his vast domain. This network became the lifeblood of the empire, connecting its farthest reaches and fostering communication and trade. He promoted trade along the Silk Road, making it safer than it had ever been. Under the Pax Mongolica, or Mongol Peace, merchants could travel from one end of the empire to the other with a single passport, knowing they were protected. This spurred an incredible exchange of goods, ideas, technologies, and cultures between East and West. Gunpowder, the compass, and printing techniques moved westward, while scientific knowledge and artistic styles flowed east. He practiced religious tolerance, understanding that a diverse empire could only be ruled by respecting the beliefs of its subjects. Christians, Muslims, and Buddhists were all free to practice their faith. Genghis Khan's legacy is complex and often controversial. To many, he remains a symbol of brutality and destruction, but he was also a visionary leader who united a fractured people, established a code of law, opened the world to trade, and laid the foundations for one of the largest contiguous empires in history. His military strategies are still studied in military academies today, and his impact on world history is undeniable. He transformed the world map and set in motion a chain of events that would shape the course of civilizations for centuries to come. From a hunted boy on the Mongolian steppe to the ruler of a vast empire, the story of Genghis Khan is a powerful testament to the force of human will. It's a reminder that history is often forged not in peace, but in the crucible of conflict, by individuals with the audacity to dream of a new world and the strength to make it a reality. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more epic tales from history. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Who should we cover next? Let us know, and we'll see you in the next video.